Welcome back to CIA Declassified. We've chronicled the agency's attack on the individual mind, the chemical coercion of LSD, the violence of Subproject 88, and the environmental demolition of Subproject 21. But by the early 1960s, a new directive emerged, one that recognized the mind is never truly isolated. It is a node in a vast interconnected social network. If the individual mind proves too chaotic to program, perhaps the entire social group is more predictable. This brings us to MK Ultra Subproject 12, the Psychosocial Contagion Project. This was a theoretical project that quickly became operational, built on the simple, insidious idea that emotions, beliefs, and paranoia can spread through a social network like a virus. The goal was to train highly empathetic, charismatic operatives, often young women, to infiltrate small, closed social groups, student organizations, activist cells, or intellectual circles, and introduce a specific contagion to affect the group's collective behavior. The operational theory for Subproject 12 was rooted in early Cold War academic research into group dynamics and mass hysteria. The files show the CIA worked closely with psychologists who specialized in social influence. The key concept was the emotional feedback loop. In a closed group, if an influential member displays a strong targeted emotion, say paranoia, aggressive hostility, or absolute trust in an external entity, that emotion is unconsciously mirrored and amplified by the other members, eventually overtaking the group's collective rational judgment. We have a key document that outlines this foundational principle, document PR 2 77 A. Progress Report Operational Metrics of Group Cohesion. A description of the document. It's a mid project report analyzing the speed and saturation rate of seeded emotional concepts within test groups. Quote, the contagion vector need not occupy a position of authority, only one of high perceived empathy and trust. The targeted emotion should be introduced as personal distress, not a political mandate, ensuring rapid horizontal spread, maximum saturation. 80% adoption rate of the seeded belief is achieved within a mean period of 72 hours under optimum confinement conditions. End quote. The files emphasize that the most potent contagions were those that tapped into pre existing anxieties, ensuring the new seeded belief felt like self discovery rather than an external instruction. The success of Subproject 12 depended entirely on the quality of the operative who was officially designated the, quote, hypnotic vector, end quote. These individuals were not brute force agents, they were specialists in psychological rapport. Recruitment criteria favored high emotional intelligence, adaptability, and critically, a near pathological ability to suppress their own core identity and mirror the target group's values. Training was intensive, relying heavily on role playing scenarios and methods derived from improvisational theater to ensure the vector could instantly adopt the persona required by the target environment. The SR protocol, that's subtlety and rapport, taught the vectors how to establish rapport with the target group's leader and second in command simultaneously, creating triangulation that stabilized the vector's position. The emotional anchor, the vector was trained to utilize a personal manufactured tragedy, a lie about a lost family member, a betrayal, to establish immediate, deep emotional intimacy with the target subjects, making them a safe harbor for secrets. We have an excerpt from the operational manual detailing the operational deployment strategy. This is document OP-12-005, Operational Manual Vector Deployment Strategy. Description of the document, instructions for the physical and psychological placement of the vector into the target group. Quote, the vector must initiate contact in a state of manufactured vulnerability. Do not present strength. The objective is to be perceived as a shared vulnerability that requires group protection. The contagion, be it political apathy, financial distrust, or fear of external monitoring, is then introduced as an unconfirmed personal discovery, not a certainty. Confirmation bias will do the rest of the work. The vector is never to confirm the contagion. They only share the whisper. End quote. The psychological danger to the vector herself was immense. The continuous performance, the total suppression of self, and the weaponization of trust led to severe reported cases of identity diffusion among the operatives, a state where they permanently lost the sense of their true self after extraction. The files for Subproject 12 are among the most heavily redacted in the entire MK Ultra subproject archive, often covering entire pages of budget summaries and target logs with thick black bars. The secrecy here is focused on the political and financial architecture of the project. Redaction Category A, the source of funding and congressional oversight. What is redacted? Line item budgets, transfer notes, and internal financial memos detailing the origin and flow of money for the project. These redactions appear in TR 1288C, the final summary report, across the budgetary allocation section. Hypothesis for this redaction: concealing the use of black budget and institutional laundering. The massive scale of Subproject 12 likely required vast sums. The redaction protects the specific front companies, academic grants, and potentially even foreign funds used to disguise the project's funding source. Exposing the financial labyrinth would reveal the exact institutional shell games the CIA uses to bypass standard congressional oversight, possibly implicating specific high-level individuals outside of the agency. Redaction Category B, the target group identities. What is redacted? All specific identifying information regarding the groups targeted by the vectors. This includes dates, locations, types of organizations, e.g. Student Council, University of Redacted, and the names of the subjects. Hypothesis for redaction: protecting the domestic targets and operational scope. Unlike foreign counterintelligence, Subproject 12 primary goal was often domestic. The monitoring and manipulation of American dissidents, intellectuals, or political groups deemed threatening to Cold War policy. The redaction prevents revealing the CIA's specific history of spying on and deliberately destabilizing groups of American citizens, a direct violation of their charter. Revealing the specific groups and the names of the individuals targeted would lead to massive public and political scandal. Redaction Category C, irreversible operational contagions. What is redacted? Summaries of successful contagions that were permanently seeded. These sections detail the type of contagious belief, e.g. massive disinvestment in public sector or distrust of electoral process, and the lasting real-world consequences observed years after the vector was extracted. Hypothesis for redaction: concealing proven methods of systematic destabilization. The redactions hide the proof that the CIA developed reliable, low-cost methods for causing widespread targeted social and political dysfunction. If these operational outcomes were revealed, it would provide a blueprint for external adversaries and confirm the agency's capacity to destabilize its own nation through social engineering. Despite the disciplined training and high-level theoretical underpinnings, Subproject 12 suffered a fatal human flaw: the blowback. The vector, by necessity, had to become intimately intertwined with the target group. When the vector was extracted, often suddenly and without explanation, the effect on the target group was often uncontrollable. Instead of the targeted contagion stabilizing, the sudden, unexplained collapse of a major emotional anchor, the vector, often led to a chaotic, unpredictable, second-order contagion, mass confusion, violence, or hyperparanoia focused on an entirely different, previously unseen external enemy. The target group would often dissolve or radicalize in ways the agency never planned nor controlled. In essence, the CIA found it was easy to light a fire in a social network, but nearly impossible to predict the direction of the resulting inferno. The project, while proving the concept of emotional contagion, was deemed too volatile for reliable, predictable operational use. MK Ultra Subproject 12 provides a terrifying glimpse into the CIA's attempts to weaponize human relationships and exploit the very mechanisms of trust. It succeeded in demonstrating that ideology can be spread like an airborne pathogen, but failed to manage the psychological fallout. We have now explored chemical, physical, environmental, and social weapons. Next, we return to the most primal human experience, the relationship between light and the eye, sound and the ear. We will analyze the documentation for MK Ultra Subproject 9. This project was a highly specific singular study focused entirely on the optic acoustic hypnosis bridge. The researchers attempted to use synchronized repetitive light flashes and targeted ultrasonic frequencies, inaudible to the human ear, to induce a deep trance-like state without the need for drugs or traditional hypnosis. The operational goal was to create a subtle, silent trigger capable of inducing immediate compliance in a subject simply by exposure. Could they really weaponize light and sound into a silent command? Join us next time for CIA Declassified MK Ultra Subproject 9, the Optic Acoustic Hypnosis Bridge. Until then, understand the depth of the shadow government, maintain your vigilance, and keep your critical thinking sharp. I'll see you in the archives.